You ever notice how, when attention suddenly shifts to someone, most people lean into it, but a few subtly pull away? Not dramatically, not awkwardly. They don't panic. They don't freeze, they just redirect. Change the subject. Let someone else speak. Maybe you've done this yourself. A compliment lands, and instead of enjoying it, you downplay it. A group looks your way, and something inside you quietly says, "No, not me." And people assume the obvious explanation. They think it's insecurity, social anxiety, low confidence. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That explanation is often wrong. There's a very different psychology behind people who avoid the spotlight. And once you see it, you'll never read these people the same way again. Some people don't avoid attention because they fear it. They avoid it because they understand it. They've noticed what attention does to conversations, to expectations, to how people start projecting things onto you. So instead of stepping forward, they step slightly back, not out of weakness, out of awareness. The first type is what we might call the selective presence. These are people who can command attention, but choose not to. They're articulate, often respected, but they speak only when they feel it adds something real. You'll see this in meetings. Everyone's talking, ideas flying everywhere, and they stay quiet. Not because they have nothing to say, but because most of what's being said doesn't need to be said. Psychologically, this comes from a strong internal filter. Their sense of self isn't tied to being noticed. They don't equate visibility with value, so they wait. And when they finally speak, people listen, because they haven't exhausted the room with noise. If you've ever stayed quiet not because you were unsure, but because you didn't want to dilute the moment, you already understand this mindset. Then there's the expectation avoider. This one is subtle. They've learned that attention creates pressure. Once people notice you, they expect consistency. So they avoid the spotlight as a form of freedom. They don't want to become the reliable one, or the impressive one, or the person who's always on. Psychologically, this is about autonomy. They'd rather be underestimated than trapped by expectations they never agreed to. You might see this in people who hide their talents, who downplay achievements, who intentionally stay just outside the frame, not because they doubt themselves, but because they don't want their identity defined by an audience. Another type is the energy conservator. These people feel the cost of attention physically. Being watched drains them. Performing drains them. Even positive attention feels loud, so they avoid the spotlight the same way others avoid exhaustion. This isn't introversion in the casual sense. It's a heightened sensitivity to stimulation. Psychologically, their nervous system prefers depth over exposure, one-on-one over crowds, meaningful exchange over performance. If you've ever felt relief when attention moved away from you, not shame, but relief, this might be your pattern. But here's the type that gets misunderstood the most. The anti-performance thinker. These people don't see life as something to perform. They see it as something to experience. The spotlight feels artificial to them, like a distortion of reality. When attention turns into performance, something authentic disappears, and they don't want to participate in that trade. Psychologically, they value internal coherence over external validation. They're not playing the same game. So when others chase visibility, they step aside, not because they can't play, but because they don't want to. Here's what ties all these types together. Avoiding the spotlight isn't about hiding. It's about control. Control over energy, control over identity, control over meaning. In a world that rewards loudness, visibility, and constant self-display, choosing not to be seen can be a quiet form of rebellion. And this is the part most people miss. Avoiding the spotlight doesn't mean you're invisible. It means you decide when and why you're seen. So, if you've ever stepped back while others stepped forward, if attention made you feel constrained instead of empowered, if being watched felt less appealing than being real, it might not be fear, it might be clarity, and maybe, just maybe, that's not something to fix. If this felt uncomfortably familiar, you're in the right place. Muted Attention explores the psychology of quiet choices, subtle behavior, and the inner logic behind things most people misinterpret. Subscribe if you prefer understanding over noise.